chapters 46 and 47. These two chapters see the completion of the journey of the family of Israel, Jacob, into Egypt. The journey began with Jacob sacrificing to God in the place where both Abraham and Isaac had lived for a time. And there God meets with Jacob and gives him the promise, you're going to complete the journey. You're going to see your lost son again. And you're going to die in Egypt, but eventually your family will return to this land that I've promised to Abraham, Isaac, you, and to your descendants. And so here we actually see the promise of God branching out, expanding from just one thin family line to the whole of the descendants. And so the whole household goes. And then the text lists all the names. This is the part that those of you who read the chapters ahead of time, you skipped over this part. You read a few names and then just, oh. But I want to come back to this list before this devotional is done. Jacob arrives in Egypt, and particularly the region of Goshen. He meets Joseph, who gives his dad some advice on how to interact with Pharaoh when they meet. Tell him you're shepherds. They'll leave you alone. Egyptians don't like shepherds. I think Joseph wanted his family to be left alone. Egyptians culturally viewed shepherds as inferior. They were distasteful. And so it meant that the family would be left alone. And so as decades passed, this group largely was able to keep to themselves, which would have helped keep their identity as the people of God in a foreign land. Pharaoh meets with his second in command's father. Jacob takes his son's advice. Pharaoh grants the family the region of Goshen, the best part of it, and honoring them by stating that those good at shepherding put them in charge of my livestock as well. And so here we see God has made the family secure and set up to prosper even in the midst of famine. But that was not the case for all of Egypt. The rest of the chapter outlines how Joseph effectively brought all of Egypt, apart from the pagan priesthood, under the complete authority of Pharaoh. And the chapter ends then with the death of Jacob, 17 years being in Egypt. Now back to the list of names, chapter 46. More specifically, not the names themselves, but the number of names. Note in verse 26 and 27 that the number of people there was 70. Now, there's something being communicated here, and powerfully communicated. In ancient world, ancient readers, they would have made a connection that we don't make as easily today. 70 is the given number of the people of Israel, the family of Jacob at this time. And there's another place in Genesis that has a list of 70 names. It's Genesis 10, the table of nations. See, what had God promised Abraham in chapter 12, verse 3? All families on earth are going to be blessed by you. 70 being the number of the covenant people of God in this chapter 46, and 10 being the number of the table of nations is not a coincidence. It's just another subtle but present reminder that the people of God have always been called to be a blessing to the nations. Here, each nation has one person called to be a blessing to it. So, thought for today. God's covenant people. Doesn't matter the covenant. Covenant made with Abraham. Covenant made with the people through Moses. The covenant Jesus has made and invites us into. God's covenant people have always been called to be a blessing to the nations. So who can you bless around you today? In Jesus' name. As you look to do that, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious to you. And today, would you know his peace? God bless.